Please welcome Aya from littleBits.
Hi. So today I'm here to talk to you about a company that I started and based on a mission that I'm very happy to hear Mitch and Jason just talk about previously. I studied computer engineering as an undergrad. And one of the first projects we learned when learning about electronics was this, the Z80 processor. The Z80 processor is arguably one of the most cloned and most powerful microprocessor architectures of all time. It has inspired a lot of computers that people have today. But the process to learn this very powerful piece of technology was very tedious. It was very obscure, and it took a very long time. After I graduated from undergrad, I went to the Media Lab at MIT, and I realized that there's an incredible opportunity that we have in combining powerful technology with creative processes and creative materials. But I also learned something even more powerful, which is we live in a very dangerous time. Electronics, technology in general, but electronics in particular, are governing our lives. We don't understand how they work. We don't understand how lights come on, how our cars are driving, how our systems that are containing our data are working. And that's something that's very dangerous. And kids have the same problem as well. They're learning things at school that they don't understand at home. So I started to think about this idea of, can you make a technology, can you break it up into its very simplest parts, and can you make it more comprehensible? Inspired by the world's best construction brick, I sought out to see, can we make light into a brick? Can we make sensors into a brick? Can we make power into a brick? And so I started working on littleBits. littleBits is a library of electronics that's snapped together with magnets. Each brick is a ready-to-use circuit. It's pre-engineered, it's pre-programmed, you don't have to wire or anything, and everything just snaps together with magnets. So you can get started within seconds, and you can build complex circuits really without having any background in engineering. The fun thing is that littleBits are color-coded, so blue is power, green is output, pink is input. So this is an example of putting a buzzer, for instance, and you're really able to create things that are meaningful for you. So we use these with kids to get them to make projects. So this is an example of a project that was made by a 6-year-old. It's a cat that has a pressure sensor similar to what I showed you, and when you're pressing on the tongue, the tail spins, the eyes light up, and the bell on the neck starts buzzing. So the idea is that we're building this library. Every single piece of electronics into the world we want to make into a ready-to-use brick. And it's open source, so everybody can make their own. And the idea is that we want to empower people to be able to learn from it. But one of the more interesting things and why I'm here today is to talk to you about what are the opportunities in education. So we do these workshops. We start doing these workshops where we use littleBits to be able to explain real-life examples to kids. Shortly after Hurricane Sandy, we realized, just talking to people around New York, which is where we're based, that a lot of kids didn't understand what happened during Hurricane Sandy, particularly when it came to the power grid. They didn't understand why, even days after the hurricane passed, they didn't have power. Or they didn't understand why they had power and their friends didn't have power. So there were all these sort of things that they had taken for granted in their life that suddenly they realized maybe they didn't understand. So we invited kids over to our office, and we basically ran a workshop. We had them in the beginning make little buildings. They made them out of paper, they made them out of cardboard, they decorated them, and they recreated the New York landscape. And then we wired up the electricity grid, or a mock-up of it, basically mimicking power stations with AND gates and OR gates and branches, and being able to show how the distribution of electricity works. Then we started, we said sort of the hurricane came and showed how different parts of the city started shutting down, and really started to explain, oops, sorry, went too fast, really started to explain why what was happening in the power grid. And what was interesting here is that suddenly we were talking about things that were really very relevant. Empire State Building had a rechargeable battery because they had a backup generator. Uptown New York was still lit because they had their separate power stations that were not affected. And the questions that were coming from the kids were extremely powerful and inspiring. We've taken this also to the next level. We created a platform on the website where people can share projects they've made, but also teachers can share lesson plans. So this is an example of a project that we made, which is just a little car, and it's being used to explain concepts of force, mass, speed. So basically you can sort of use it in an ambush learning kind of way as an excuse to teach these concepts of physics. I'll show you this little video of some of the projects that kids are doing.
Oh, what are you doing? Whoa, like that, I guess.
How about this side?
It's a magnet!
It's a magnet. Okay, and last piece. You just press the button, then all three that turn. That's awesome.
My name is Katya Bravo, and I made a skyscraper and a lighthouse.
Hi, I'm Teresa from Engineering Ambassadors, and this is our cleaning console.
We used littleBits in one of our science projects this year. First, we learned about bioluminescent inverter. Then we put it all together, built circuits with littleBits, and put them under our animals to watch them work. This is how it works. Cool, huh?
What just happened? That was pretty neat. Is that really cool?
A little bit.
There it goes. Woohoo!
I wish you could fly.
Yay! Think you could fly away?
I wish you could.
So a couple of quick things that I should mention. Thank you. A couple of quick things I'll mention is first one is all except for 2 of these videos came to the community and in places that we didn't even know about. We found them on YouTube. But the other thing that I'll mention is that we're not only excited about putting lights and buzzers on things, we want to go into complex pieces of electronics that people have around them. Microphones, speakers, MP3 players. We're creating a brick out of every one of these. We have some samples outside if you want to play. But the idea is that kids can create things that are really relevant for them, and they can really understand how there's a difference between an iPhone and a brick. So we're based in New York. We're a small company. We're 25 people. We're a startup. We're about a year and a half into the market. But we won about 18 toy awards. And the exciting thing is that the education industry is really starting to get interested. So we have about 350 schools and education institutions that are using littleBits. Some of them formal education, some of them informal, so in after-school programs and maker spaces. And we're really inspired by that because there are things that we never thought about, such as art therapy, such as homeschoolers. So we're here. We're very thrilled to be here. I'm very inspired by this conference, very inspired by what Jason put together and by Mitch Kapoor, of course. And we're very excited. We're very inspired by teachers. So we're out here. We have some products for you to play with, and we offer education discounts and education programs. But more than anything, we want to learn from teachers what they want. We want to learn how we can better help assist your education process and get kids more excited about learning all this technology that is around them. Thank you.
Take a question from the audience or 2, or maybe there's a kid who wants to come up and hold them. Is there a youngster who wants to play with them for a second? And I did mention that if a youngster plays with them, they wind up on stage, they do get a gift card to iTunes, right? I did mention that.
You're welcome to play with them as much as you want.
Okay, let's take a question or 2 from an educator, maybe, or anybody. Or comment.
Hi, I teach high school engineering, and I think littleBits is super cool. But one struggle that I've had with it is that it seems like it's geared more to younger kids, so it was
harder for me to know how I might incorporate into my class with older students, especially I wanted them to learn like soldering and understand more complex electronics. Are you guys considering moving into more space like that for older students, or is there like you graduate from littleBits and then you go into something else?
So it's a couple of things. The first one, so soldering is kind of a hard line that we decided to draw. So we're never going to be the type of platform that enables you to learn soldering. We've decided to break down the components into this very simplest, but not put soldering as kind of a hurdle. But the other thing is we basically, most of the modules that we have now are pretty primitive, but with the introduction of logic gates and with the introduction of a lot of the more sort of sophisticated projects, you'll be able to explain pretty complex systems with littleBits. So some of them are already out, but more than anything, we have sort of a long list that we're going through. And we have lesson plans that are starting to be submitted by teachers that are teaching 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, even 18-year-olds, and design students in universities. So I would say we're happy to talk to you more about it and give you examples.
Great, one more question.
Yeah, hi. I've been teaching kids with here. At the end of the row, seat here. So I've been teaching kids programming with in Scratch using Picoboard, so introducing physical objects and dimension. Do you plan to just stay in the physical domain, or do you plan to connect with Scratch type softwares where it's a combination and more around connectivity, networking, and things like that?
That's a very good question. That's exactly something that we're going in that direction. So I'm very inspired by Mitch Resnick, and actually it was Scratch is one of the big inspirations behind littleBits. So one of the things that we're doing is we're building smart bits that are going to be able to be programmable for kids, but also adults that are a little more advanced. So through Scratch, but also through Arduino and eventually Raspberry Pi. So we're going in that direction. But the exciting thing is that, you know, even as we introduce more complex things, the big opportunity comes from combining with material and combining with content. So it's sort of a delicate balance that we're playing.
Awesome. Okay, let's hear it for a little bit.
Thank you.
Well done.